Coming up on In the Life, it's Melissa and Martina, honored in LA. A trip to Boston as Outwriters converge with Tony Kushner, Urvashi Vaught, and Ann Bannon. Dance and drama with Bill T. Jones and B.D. Wong, and veterans of many wars. All up on In the Life, America's information line on gay and lesbian issues and culture.
In the Life is funded in part by the H. Van Ameringen Foundation. Additional support provided by Michael A. Lepin, Jeffrey B. Soref, Eldon W. Tamblin, the Gay and Lesbian Business and Consumer Expo, and In the Life members nationwide.
In the
It's like being a veteran.
We are veterans.
We are
exactly.
veterans. Veterans stay together because they know how it was to be in the trenches.
Welcome. I'm Katherine Linton. In a series of stories on this edition of In the Life, we pay tribute to our veterans. Not only those lesbians and gay men who have served their country in the military, but also those who have been in the forefront in the struggle for equal rights and in the fight against AIDS. As you'll see in the lesbian and gay community, the word veteran includes soldiers of many stripes. Today, the battle against homophobia, discrimination, and AIDS is often waged in the workplace. As correspondent Bill Britt tells us, the entertainment industry is a place where one group has made a difference.
The annual concert to raise money for AIDS Project Los Angeles has also been known to raise the consciousness of those who attend. Jess asked two of the most powerful men in Hollywood, QVC Chairman Barry Diller and the President and Chief Operating Officer of MCA Universal, Sid Sheinberg.
I got a call one day from Barry. He had come to the realization, and I think surprisingly so, that there were a lot of problems in our community in the way gay people were perceived and depicted and treated.
One of the biggest problems was the fact that Hollywood, despite its reputation for being a liberal haven for gays and lesbians, had a less than stellar record concerning discrimination. Employment at a major network or on the lot of a famous studio did not guarantee a safe haven from the kind of unfair treatment that could crop up in any other workplace in any other community. So Sheinberg and Diller co-founded Hollywood Supports and asked Richard Jennings, a friend and former corporate lawyer, to help lead the fight against homophobia on the job.
One of the first ways that we approached that was by getting the industry to adopt domestic partner benefits, so that that's starting to become an industry standard.
With MCA Universal leading the way, Hollywood Supports helped 15 other studios and networks extend health insurance plans to same-sex partners. After sponsoring more than 1,000 AIDS seminars for a variety of companies, there is now a new seminar. It's titled Sexual Orientation in the Workplace. It's an enticing topic when facilitators remind employers about the bottom line.
They need to understand the different aspects of the general public. Also, there are companies and professional groups, law firms and the like, are particularly always seeking the best and the brightest coming out of professional schools. Well, if they want the best and the brightest to come there, they have to acknowledge that sometimes the best and the brightest are gay and lesbian. How do they make the environment attractive to them?
The workplace is where we spend most of our working lives, and it's also a place where it's fairly easy to make change, where employers who have any level of sophistication get it pretty quickly.
I really believe in many ways this starts at the top. I mean, no one walks the halls here and hears, quote, fag jokes, close quote. I mean, we have an attitude here, and it's an attitude based upon, you know, deep personal conviction, and it didn't start when it became fashionable. We've tried to be activists. This is me personally, and I guess some of it has rubbed off on the company.
Of course, all this rubs some folks the wrong way. More than a few people who attend the seminars bluntly ask, why are we here?
You find out what their needs are, find out what it's like where they work, and if, I always believe this with anyone, if you can make them understand what it would be like for them. So that, for example, if, without getting too personal with them, if you can maybe try and find out a little about their own experience, and then you turn it to, well, what if being a man in the workplace was a bad thing? Well, what would that be like for you? So behavior is what we tend to stress, not changing someone's beliefs.
There are those who believe that anything you do with the gay community is worthy of condemnation. I get more than my share of death threats. There are those who believe that why should you cover people of the same sex in the category of health plans? Why not cover heterosexual couples who are living together but aren't married? I think the only test that I've been able to use is, are we doing the right thing? And I can't tell you that this is the only right thing we should be doing, but like everybody else, we do have limited resources. We can't do everything we would like to do, and we have to make choices.
From Sheinberg to the folks at Hollywood Supports to celebrities like Elton John, making the right choices has meant making life just a little easier for everyone else and making their own lives all the richer for it.
I think it's important in my life to have something else to do other than be Elton John, and to be so self-absorbed all the time, and what am I going to do, what am I going to write, what am I going to record, where am I going to tour. I've been given a second chance at my life. I deserve to do something good for me, to give something back.
Perhaps no other issue has so divided the lesbian and gay community, or the country for that matter, as President Clinton's attempt to lift the ban on gays in the military. But lost in that debate was an appreciation for how many lesbians and gay men proudly serve their country, often distinguishing themselves not only on the battlefield, but also in the battle against homophobia in the Army, Navy, Air Force, and the Marines. What was it like to be a gay service member in World War II, in Vietnam? And is it really any easier today?
I'd rather lose my uniform than my integrity.
And you will, you know.
Long before Colonel Margareta Kammermeyer challenged the ban, lesbians and gays were serving in the military, and not always in silence.
When the country is at war, there is a strong need for warm bodies, and even queer warm bodies.
They come from every walk of life.
In the documentary Before Stonewall, Women's Army Corps Sergeant Johnny Phelps remembers her response when then General Eisenhower ordered her to ferret out all the lesbians in her battalion.
If the general is prepared to replace all the file clerks, all the section commanders, all of the drivers, every woman in the WAC detachment, and there were about 980-something of us, then I'll be happy to make that list. But you have to know that the first name on the list will be mine. And he said, forget the order.
Later, as president, it was Eisenhower who signed an executive order banning homosexuals from federal jobs. The McCarthy era had begun.
And then he said there are homosexuals in the Army, and we've been paying for that statement ever since. Even though McCarthy was discredited, his policies never were.
Vernon Copy Berg learned that the hard way. A model midshipman, Glee Club member, and artist, Berg would become the first naval officer to challenge the ban. In the Life spoke with gay veterans from several generations. Though their experiences differ, all served in units where they were not alone.
Most of the Korean vets are rather well established now, so they don't want to come out and say, hey, I'm gay. But there was an undercurrent of it in the service.
Generals are very, very intelligent. They pick out the gay man to come in and be his attaché and pretend not to know. What a surprise, you know.
There was a person that I served with that was a drag queen. I mean, they dressed up on the weekends. I mean, they had fabulous costumes and outfits. And people that we work with, both straight and gay, knew that this particular person did drag shows on the weekend.
But in unfriendly commands, the witch hunts were real.
I was closeted the whole time that I was in the military. It just wasn't anything that you really talked about, even though there were times when I was approached by people I was always worried that maybe it was entrapment.
We got in a new battalion commander who was rabid on this issue. I mean, homosexuals were ruining the Army. And he, early in his tenure, he called in all the officers on a weekend and said, tonight, in the middle of the night, we're going through the barracks on a surprise inspection. And we weren't looking for contraband, we weren't looking for weapons or drugs. We were specifically looking for males sleeping with males and females sleeping with females.
That same commander later ordered her investigated as well. Years before, Copy Berg got a hint of what was to come from 2 other gay seamen on his ship.
They made them, together with U.S. Marshals on either side of them, walk down the gangplank in the entire length of the pier, and they put them in a police van. And every single person who was on board that ship who did go and watch. That's the kind of public humiliation that they use.
Soon, Berg himself was accused by the Navy of homosexuality. He joined with Air Force Sergeant Leonard Matlovich in a long but unsuccessful legal fight to win reinstatement. 1 year ago, President Clinton and Congress compromised on a new policy that was supposed to make life easier for gays in the military. But
too frequently, don't ask, don't tell, and don't pursue has become, in the field, ask, harass, and pursue.
It's this funny combination of freedom and knowing that the rug could be pulled out from under you at any time. Anybody could turn you in.
And for those commanders who wish to pursue, those service members are being hunted down.
Michelle Beneke helps run a service members' legal aid and watchdog group that has received over 400 calls about witch hunts, illegal interrogations, even death threats. A quarter of those calls come from women.
Women continue to be accused of being lesbians, often in retaliation for reporting men who are sexually harassing or who have raped them.
And the discharge rate for gays in the Air Force has actually gone up. This at a time when gay interest has gone down.
Be all that you can be.
The call to lift the ban at the March on Washington
'Cause we need you.
Was barely heard at Stonewall 25.
There's about 100,000 gay and lesbian men and women serving now who need our help. They cannot be abandoned.
And thousands more who continue to sign up for the same reason Maurice Franklin did.
Economic reasons, education reasons. Living in Oklahoma, it was a way out for me.
What would you tell a service member now who is in trouble, who is being harassed or pursued by the military?
They should say nothing, sign nothing, and they should call us. Call Service Members Legal Defense Network in Washington, D.C.
And as the legal challenge to don't ask, don't tell works its way through the courts, the veterans we spoke to will be watching.
I can't believe that in 10 years from now the courts won't have recognized that they cannot legislate prejudice into law.
Don't ask, don't tell, don't go. Personally, that's one of the ways I feel, and then let them see how bad the place falls apart.
Thinking back to blacks going from a segregated military to an integrated military, I knew that took about 16 years. So I'm hopeful that there are things in place that will, that we won't even be thinking about the issue of gays and lesbians in the military.
And it's going to take time for the tolerance and acceptance of their co-workers to realize that it doesn't make one damn bit of difference, just like it didn't make any difference when I was in.
It meant so much to me to graduate from West Point and to be part of a tradition. I'm still part of that. It hurts.
For lesbians and gays, the word veteran refers not only to those who have served our country. It has also come to include veterans of a different war, a war that continues to claim new lives every day, a war that seemingly has no end. It is, of course, the war against AIDS. We're here at Fenway Community Health Center in Boston, the largest community-based AIDS care provider in Massachusetts. Boston is home to a visible and vibrant lesbian and gay community. It is here that dancer and choreographer Bill T. Jones, himself HIV positive, will bring his troupe this spring to perform Still Here, an extraordinary new work about life, loss, and the struggle to survive.
Introducing the survivors.
Marty, I like to hit the inside pitch. Sheila, I'm a positive person. Mary, do the Mary.
They are young, old, black, white, straight, and gay. What they share is the struggle against life-threatening disease, cancer, leukemia, HIV. This dance is about them, their pain, their fear, and their courage.
The questions that people who face a serious illness have are questions that all thoughtful adults have but just don't think of.
The man who wants us to ponder those questions is Bill T. Jones, the openly gay modern dance choreographer who has been HIV positive for a decade. Jones interviewed scores of people to help him understand his future, and we ours. The result? A multimedia work integrating the voices of those participants with interpretation by his dancers. The first section, Still, is hypnotic, introspective. The second half, Here, more defiant, more physical. In the end, it is a performance that is upbeat, inspiring, full of hope, and full of life.
And now I've discovered there's a joy in it, and I will conquer it.
Jones, who spoke within the Life during last year's Gay Games Cultural Festival, acknowledges that for the lesbian and gay community, AIDS has brought out our strength and courage, too.
I think that AIDS has taught us something now, that there's something to be said for, yes, we are erotic animals, we are, but we're also capable of great, great loyalty and depth of feeling.
In Still Here, Jones appears only on a video monitor. It is his troupe and the participants who challenge us directly. But through them, Bill T. Jones reminds us we too have no time to waste.
Don't sit and dream, something that we gay people do a lot. We close the door and we dream about palaces. Make your palaces there. Behave as if you will be here. Build your castles, make your relationships, do whatever you have to do. That's what I do. And we'll deal with tomorrow.
For In the Life, I'm Hal German.
Another veteran of the war against AIDS was Paul Monette, winner of the National Book Award for his novel Becoming a Man.
In one sense, I feel I stand witness to the calamity of AIDS, and I feel about how history will talk about it the way Primo Levi felt about the camps. Yeah. He knew that they would lie about it. He knew they would try to put it under the table. He knew that there would be a neo-history that said, oh, gee, that never happened, or it wasn't as bad as everybody said it was. I want to make sure I leave a record of how bad it really was. But on the other hand, I also need to be witness to the great outpouring of
power of love.
Yeah, exactly. Both among us who suffer from AIDS, and among our brothers and sisters in the lesbian and gay community, and especially among our families and straight allies.
I still shiver with a kind of astonished delight, wrote Monette, when a gay brother or sister tells of that narrow escape from the coffin world of the closet. Yes, 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 goes a voice in my head. It was just like that for me. Paul Monette died of AIDS this past February. He was remembered here in Boston at Outwrite, a gathering of lesbian and gay authors from all over the country.
I think just like a lot of people, I've been profoundly moved, really challenged by Paul's writing, and really inspired. I mean, Becoming a Man was really one of the first gay books that I felt I had to give to every single straight relative and friend that I had, because I felt that it explained something about the confusion and difficulty of being in the closet and coming out in a way that nobody else has ever done.
Just like for Paul Monette and Tony Kushner, books have been a major source of inspiration for the lesbian and gay community. Outwrite allows the writers of these works to come together and share their ideas. Ironically, in a city that once banned books.
Welcome to Boston.
Because
Because of the swing toward the right, it's very critical that we keep talking, that we don't allow ourselves to be silenced, that we get our stories in print no matter where, whether it's a magazine, a book, a newspaper, whether you are Xeroxing pages and stapling together and handing them out somewhere.
This is a very stimulating conference, Outwrite. It happens every year, and the response this year has been astonishing. If you think about over 1,500 people here from all over the country, and a lot of new faces, a lot of people who are not names, you know, in lesbian and gay and queer publishing or anything, and a lot of people who are major forces, who have made major contributions.
The fact that people can meet each other here and see each other and get to know each other, I think, is the primary function. I think we all work better when we know each other better. So I would not for a second underestimate the, you know, meeting in the corridor stuff. I do think that's the point here. We bring people together from all over the country. That in itself is an accomplishment and important.
We're here with Charles Flowers, editor of Out Loud and Laughing. Charles, where did you get the idea for this book?
I had the idea, why don't we do a best of collection? Why don't we do the best of Frank Maya, the best of Leah Delaria, and gather it in one anthology?
I'm on this plane, and I'm always nervous on planes anyway, you know. I mean, not about crashing, but like my skin drying out, you know, so yeah.
I think there's a possibility of progressive change with comedy because by laughing, having gay humor, we connect with straight America. And when they laugh, I think, you know, we have a potential of appearing less alienating, less threatening. And so on one level, we laugh, we enjoy ourselves. On another level, we can change the world.
And here's a tip for you at home. Never come out to your father in a moving vehicle.
Uncommon Heroes is a photo essay anthology focusing on the veterans of the lesbian and gay civil rights movement. Philip, why did you write this book?
This book was a burning desire of mine for over a decade. I felt that somebody had to tell the positive stories about lesbian and gay people. And so in my travels around the country, in my regular job, which is not publishing, I talked to lesbian and gay people and asked them who their role models were, who the people that inspired them.
In the Life asked that same question to some conference participants.
I am a big fan of Urvashi Vaid.
You know, writers like Dorothy Allison and Audre Lorde and Adrienne Rich, Tony Kushner.
Anne Northrup.
The person who influenced my thinking perhaps most on this in a positive way was a straight woman, Gloria Steinem.
I don't know that as a young woman I really knew who my heroes were at first. I think I started reading a few paperback books of the type that I eventually wrote myself and began to realize that there was an audience there and that there was an outlet. The women who are my heroes are sort of, I think, outside aren't thought of particularly in lesbian terms, although some of them are beginning to be. I'm thinking of Eleanor Roosevelt or perhaps Margaret Mead and women like that.
I'm glad to see that the conference is diverse. It doesn't strictly focus on writing, and that I'll be able to be on a panel on film, and we'll be able to talk about, quote, the new chic queer narrative cinema. But what about those of us who've been doing queer cinema for 25 years? You know, so in a way, it makes a history to have an older person in the population, I'm 55, be on a panel with somebody in their 20s.
I think it's very important for someone of my age who's been around before Stonewall and during the period afterwards to have a sense of generation. And very much like a parent, I've learned to understand a little bit what heterosexual parents go through, and I guess lesbian and gay parents go through. You just go, God, what are they doing, those kids, you know? But also wanting to say, this is what I learned. This is what we did. Honor the people that came before you, as you should be honored by the people that come after you.
You know that your foremothers were out there, that in a time when people's lives could be destroyed in a twinkling for being candid about themselves, that nevertheless people were taking that chance. People were saying something to each other, and that what they said still resonates for people now.
Audre Lorde was one of the most gifted writers of our time. She wrote numerous books of poetry and prose and co-founded Kitchen Table Press, the only publishing house for women of color.
I believe in poetry. I believe that all art makes us more powerfully who we wish to become.
Lorde passionately believed in the connection between art and politics.
Everything we do has got to contribute to the struggle, because everything they do is grinding us into dust, and we will not be ground.
While all of this was going on, I stood by the kitchen, looking at him across the room.
Staring.
I wondered at that moment what it was like to kiss you.
To see you naked.
To run my fingers down your chest.
One place where the legacy of the Stonewall movement is clearly evident is in America's theaters, where plays with lesbian and gay characters are being staged with increased frequency. Here at the Public Theater in New York, a commitment to diversity is key to the mission of artistic director George C. Wolfe, a diversity that eagerly welcomes informative plays about gay and lesbian lives.
I want to try to create, in its truest sense, an American theater, which is a theater that is comprised of telling as many different stories as it possibly can.
One play and performance this spring at the Public is A Language of Their Own, about the relationship between two Asian men. We caught actors B.D. Wong and Francis Ju in rehearsal under the direction of Keng Sen Ong.
Then you moved in. For 4 years. We discovered new uses for the kitchen and the living room.
Acted like children in museums on Sundays.
Read poetry to each other in my large wooden bed by candlelight.
Had breakfast in Union Park.
A Language of Their Own is basically Joy Luck Club but with better hair. But primarily the play is about looking for love and how people seek it and the ways they try to maintain it.
Do you know how many trains we sat on together?
Seems like thousands.
And I thought in thousands more.
4 years.
Yes.
My theory of the language of their own basically comes from the fact that we are different people. We are random, like atoms. And when we collide, something happens, you know. This person that you never thought you'd meet in the street all of a sudden becomes the most important person in your life. And the fact is that he has a different language and you have a different language. We have a set of rules, a set of perceptions, a set of ideas. And all of a sudden, these two people begin to share these ideas, this language.
So you always look for, as a producer, people who have very unique voices that are able to take in the world, deal with the specifics of who they are, and also do it with a level of intimacy so that therefore you as an audience feel like you're witnessing something very personal. And I feel as though this play does that, so that therefore the specifics of it is unquestionably, unapologetically Asian and gay, and celebrates in that phenomenon, but it is incredibly intimate about like the heart.
And then one night when I came home, you said,
I don't think we should see each other anymore.
I didn't know what to say.
Oscar discovers just before the play begins that he's HIV positive. And as often happens, it becomes the focus of your life. And in the course of that, Oscar breaks up with his lover of 4 years. I think that Oscar is motivated by love.
I definitely relate to Ming's dilemma as an American-born Asian person, specifically an American-born Chinese. And I really did not like being an Asian person when I was a teenager, when I was aspiring to be a younger actor. I really thought that not being a white person just kept me from getting everything that I wanted. And then it was really when I was in this play, M. Butterfly on Broadway, that I understood the beauty and the power and the wonderfulness of being an artist of color.
For once, we're having a play that is not just about being gay. It's not about being Asian American. It's not about issues. It's about people.
Is there still a stigma for an actor to play a gay role, and is that any different for an Asian actor?
Absolutely. I think especially for Asian American men that this is a problem. I think Asian American men are typically looked at as sexless or as sexually passive.
Like racism, homophobia is not always pinpointable. You can't always tell when it's happening or who it's coming from. You just know that there's something wrong. And so it's not easy to say, well, I didn't get this part because of homophobia or because I played a gay character. You don't always really know. And that's the awful, elusive thing about it.
There's so much crappy, sort of racist, sexist, homophobic conditioning that is there without people even knowing it. It's a war. It's a war doing culture in America in which you're not trying to affirm a European aesthetic is war. That's it.
Industry people, casting directors, producers, and people that are gatekeepers don't necessarily understand or appreciate that aspiration of diversity or the artist's ability or wish to be those many things. So those gatekeepers don't always understand, oh wow, that gayness or that issue of playing a gay person is just part of a wonderful spectrum of work.
This play will go a long way towards sort of letting people see the variety and the richness of people who happen to be Asian American, who happen to be gay.
And so this institution, the public, is really about celebrating differences and celebrating the specifics of everybody's story and not being apologetic about it, or not being, I sneaked that one in. You know, as long as I'm here, there will be gay plays, there will be Asian plays, there will be black plays, there will be white plays, there will be a few European things going on. You know, there will be all of it here because we're all a part of it.
In the...
Hi, I'm Maria Maggenti, and you're watching In the Life.
Still ahead on this edition of In the Life, we'll have clips from a heartwarming movie and 2 powerful documentaries you won't want to miss. And we'll preview a new opera based on the life of a true veteran of the lesbian and gay rights movement, Harvey Milk. But first, when you think of the most visible lesbians of our day, who comes to mind? Melissa? Martina? Fair enough. Yet in the war against AIDS, thousands of lesbians have been there from the beginning, helping their brothers through the early stages of the epidemic. Then, when it became clear that women too were dying from AIDS, fighting to get the services they deserved. Tonight, we'll look at both, the celebrities and the rarely recognized women whose contributions matter just as much.
Get the facts. Lesbians are living with AIDS. We are not immune. Act up! Fight back! Fight AIDS!
What's significant, I think, is that lesbians have been getting AIDS since the beginning of the epidemic. We just haven't been categorized as lesbians.
People need to understand beforehand that lesbians are women and that we are just as much exposed and at risk as any other woman.
Well, lesbians that are HIV infected reflect the general population of women who are HIV infected. They are primarily poor, urban-dwelling women of color who live in communities where drugs are available and it's not uncommon for them or their associates to use IV drugs.
That doesn't mean that women that have more buffer, more middle-class women, aren't at risk also, but it means that it takes longer. It just takes longer. That's all that's true about a virus. It enters populations that are most vulnerable.
Well, the vast majority of women who are lesbians who are HIV infected are tremendously isolated from the lesbian community. In fact, women who are HIV infected very frequently have a multitude of identities to have to cope with in terms of looking for services and looking for support. Being a lesbian with HIV, being a lesbian who has shot drugs, being a lesbian who may have had a past of exchanging sex for drugs or money, puts that lesbian, that woman who has sex with women, in a very isolated, very insecure position.
To do lesbian HIV issues means to be committed to a struggle around racism and a struggle around class difference. It means that not because it's rhetorical, but because African American women get a different kind of health care than white middle class women. And if you can't take that on, you can't take on HIV.
Women with AIDS under attack. What do we do?
Ironically, even though we didn't start doing lesbian HIV work, or I didn't start it because of numbers, what we're finding is that in any study where women partner with women, they're either more likely to be involved in risky activities or more likely to be HIV positive. And it turns out that it looks like it's a marker when we can't figure anything else out about women to indicate that that's a really risky category of women, even though we don't understand it.
I think that for most people, the idea of a lesbian having HIV infection is an idea that's not entertained or thought of or considered important. I think that women are getting short shrift in terms of treatment, in terms of research, and lesbians are totally at the bottom of the barrel.
One of the issues is being able to empower these women to be out about their sexuality and about their status. And it's hard, it's very hard to fight for visibility when there are so many women scared to be out.
I think it's really important for us to recognize that lesbian AIDS activists have been a very important part of the AIDS activist movement. And we need to acknowledge that, and those of us who have done that work need to understand that that's been very important work. But I think because women tend to ignore ourselves, we've ignored the lesbian community in a way that we can no longer afford to do.
In Los Angeles, it was hard to ignore celebrities gathered to raise money for women's health services.
Have you ever seen so many famous lesbians in one room? Lesbians?
Martina Navratilova and Melissa Etheridge were the top honorees in Los Angeles for Women's Night, an annual tribute to outstanding lesbian and bisexual women. Navratilova was given the Community Role Model Award and proved she still has great form when it comes to shrugging off all those tabloid tales.
According to everything that's been written about me, I probably have slept with about half of you that are here. But as you know, it's not true. In fact, I don't have one ex-girlfriend in this room, and who here can say that?
There was more praise for the tennis pro from the lesbian laureate. Etheridge hailed Navratilova as her personal role model.
When I decided to come out, she was very much that sort of role model for me, and I was very excited to finally meet her and become her friend. It's meant a lot to me.
Navratilova responded that she gladly takes on the title of role model, especially when certain other athletes pointedly turn it down.
I think most people that are put in that position, athletes particularly, get paid enough to suffer the consequences of being a role model. And we can behave ourselves and be true to ourselves and practice what we preach and live our own truth and make sure that our actions and words match. I don't think it's too much to ask for.
This year's event raised $250,000 for the Los Angeles Gay and Lesbian Community Services Center, the oldest and largest gay and lesbian organization in the world. Back at the party, the crowd couldn't have asked for a better evening. Etheridge was handed the Creative Integrity Award.
Let's do that pyramid we all practiced.
And 7 local lesbian and bisexual women were honored by LACE, Lesbians Active in Community Empowerment. They didn't have to say this was one of the most significant events of the year. You could already tell that from their faces.
I think it helps validate women. It gives them a place to come and feel safe and to feel validated for what they do and for who they are and all of what they are. I think that's one of the key, most important things about this event.
This is Bill Britt reporting for In the Life in Los Angeles.
This May in Washington, thousands of women will join in the first ever Mothers March Against AIDS. 2 of those women have just completed a remarkable documentary, a film that was begun by one of their sons, a film they finished after his death. It's called Tuesday Night, and it's about 2 support groups for mothers of grown children with HIV and AIDS. Both groups meet at the same time in the same building. Upstairs, for those whose children have died. Downstairs, for those whose children have not.
The downstairs group lives with hope, and the focus is on the child and what they can do to help their child. The upstairs group has lost that hope, and they need to deal with their own feelings about the loss. So the focus of the 2 groups is completely different, and the needs of the people in the group are different, and they cannot be addressed in the same group.
In December of 1989, my son Adam Balzano told me he was HIV positive. I was devastated. I knew I needed help. That is how I came to be a member of the Mother Support Group.
I have lost my child to AIDS, and that AIDS is a very important, not only political, national, but personal issue.
It's like being a veteran.
Right.
I mean, it was like being a veteran of the war of AIDS.
We are veterans.
We are
Exactly.
veterans. And those veterans stay together because they've had this war experience.
The same experience.
They've had the same experience. They know how it was to be in the trenches.
One of the most important things that the group gave me during my child's illness was a place where I could come and say anything.
I walked into the group in a state of total terror and fear, and we held hands, and I found myself closing my eyes and crying, and everybody was very silent. They had all been through this, but this was my first time. And then Dean was there, and she was talking about her son, who was very sick. And I said, "What's wrong with your son? What's happening?" And she said, "He's dying." And I just sat there, and I said, "My God, why aren't we all screaming?"
Our relationship is better than it's ever been. It's more open, it's more honest. But I'm petrified. Because as good as it is, I'm afraid of when I'm not going to have it. And it scares the hell out of me. And I wish that there was something I could do to stop it.
Everybody wishes.
To just put a hold on it.
I don't know, I could be sitting in an executive meeting, and from nowhere comes the thought, I'm sitting here making decisions about this company, and somewhere my son may be dying. You know, it's like, you know, excuse me, what did you say?
Even the phone scares you. When I'm at work, the phone scares me. Who's gonna call me and tell me what happens next?
My heart is breaking.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I can feel it emotionally and psychologically. I almost feel it physically, that my heart is breaking. And I could give up some of, you know, positive stuff that we talk about, if I could give up the prospect of losing my son and not having him in my life.
And I get scared, really scared. I get scared. And I don't want to go upstairs again. I don't ever want to go. So, it's scary. I can understand how she feels. I don't want to lose him either. I want to go first. Mother's supposed to go first.
Mother's supposed to go first.
It's the gay community that helped my daughter and I when she first got diagnosed. And I'll do anything in the world for the gay community because they helped us and no one else in the world did.
Mothers who have children that are HIV positive or that have AIDS, they're not alone. There are other mothers and other women out there who are there for them, who can help them.
For our next documentary clip, we revisit the issue of veterans of military service. Earlier, we spoke with Alan Barabay. Now Arthur Dong has turned Coming Out Under Fire into a film.
I still have problems today with the military and what it stands for, especially with third world countries. But what the issue really means for me is that it was a clear example of the violation of human rights. And that for me was very important, that despite whatever political leanings I may have or whatever personal feelings I have about the military machine, the fact is that our government treats a class of citizens this way was not right. And I wanted to let a larger audience know about it.
neuropsychiatric examination of applicants for voluntary enlistment and selectees for induction. The Surgeon General desires that medical officers be especially alert to detect all persons with constitutional psychopathy and other persons who later may disrupt discipline and morale. In this general group are to be grotesque and pathological liars, vagabonds, petty offenders, swindlers, kleptomaniacs, pyromaniacs, alcoholic persons, and homosexual persons.
I do solemnly swear.
I was interested in the adventure and the excitement. I mean, I just was going to save the world, for democracy. My mother protested because I was a nice young lady from a good family, and I was expected to go to college and get married, not go to the Navy.
That all statements made by me.
That all statements made by me.
As now given in this record.
As now given in this record.
Are correct.
Are correct.
I didn't hear anything about being queer when I went in. I didn't even know what the word existed when I went in the Navy. It just wasn't part of the vocabulary or part of the conversation.
You went into an office with I guess he was a psychiatrist, I don't know, and he had some more questions. Of course, one of the questions he asked me was how I felt about girls, and I said, I like them, I'm engaged to be married. He said, oh, fine, and that was it. He never asked me how I felt about men, or I would have told him I like them too.
I was in the Colored Army. We knew that we were there because of the law. We were not allowed to serve our country as equals. And the laws of the country were against you. And if you were also identified as a gay person, that was a double whammy.
While fear of exposure trapped some in a world of solitude, others found each other, gradually realizing that they were not the only ones in the armed forces. Ironically, military service gave many the opportunity to enjoy a gay camaraderie they had not known in their hometowns. These new friendships gave lesbian and gay GIs a temporary refuge from the official hostility that surrounded them.
We didn't see any obvious signs of a purge going on. No one had been called in, there had been no interrogations, but there was this rumor going around. How it got started, I don't know. Probably because maybe there had been a purge on some other base, and there was a thought that there might be one on ours. But all of a sudden, the gay people in my unit became rather self-conscious. We all began saying to each other, well, maybe we're too obvious. Maybe our friendships with each other are causing problems. I think we reacted in a paranoid fashion. We all became very afraid that something was going to happen.
In 1977, after 4 tries, Harvey Milk became San Francisco's first openly gay supervisor. Known as the mayor of Castro Street, Milk devoted his life to lesbian and gay rights and the rights of all minorities. He led the passage of a gay civil rights bill for San Francisco and was instrumental in the defeat of one of the first anti-gay initiatives. After only 11 months in office, he was assassinated by fellow supervisor Dan White. His early death was, and still is, a great loss.
The legacy of Harvey Milk lives on. I'm here with 4 students from the Hetrick-Martin Institute's Harvey Milk School. Who can tell me something about Harvey Milk's life?
He was a gay, outspoken man of San Francisco, California.
He was a wonderful role model for youth all over the country. I think he set up kind of like a household name for gay people because they were never talked about in the home, and Harvey Milk, being a politician and whatnot, was really talked about. And he's kind of like brought us into the home so that we could be spoken about and people might accept us more.
It's important to remember the contributions of those who have paved the way for a new generation, The story of Harvey Milk has been recorded in a book, The Mayor of Castro Street, and also an Academy Award-winning documentary. Now, here in New York, rehearsals have begun for, of all things, a new opera based on his life. 3 major companies have teamed up to bring Harvey Milk, the opera, to life. This new work opens at the New York City Opera this spring and moves on to San Francisco in 1996.
The Houston Grand Opera, the New York City Opera, and the San Francisco Opera commissioned Harvey Milk, and I think it says a lot about how much things have changed in our world today. There's still a long way to go, but I think they all realized that Harvey Milk was an important American hero and somebody whose life was important to portray on the operatic stage. It's a recurring tragedy in American history that people like Harvey Milk, who are really at the moment where they're about to change the world and have their greatest effect, are cut down.
Many people know of the assassination and they know of the defense where White was freed by saying that he ate too many Twinkies and went into temporary insanity. But they don't know the importance of Harvey Milk's life, the eras of change that he passed through in American politics, the fact that he lived in a closet, was a Wall Street stockbroker, radically changed himself, became a grassroots politician, and empowered thousands and thousands of people.
Harvey Milk was a heroic character, at least as he's portrayed in the opera, and I think that we haven't really changed him from real life in essence. He's a big person involved with big ideas at a certain time. In some ways it reminds me of another American opera, Porgy and Bess, which is about a certain American subgroup at a certain time in history, and it lends itself to opera. I mean, it's beautifully written to be sung.
One thing that really we found compelling about Harvey Milk was that he was able to transform himself in very radical directions. When he started out as a young man, he was a Goldwater Republican and a stockbroker living in a closet in New York. And for this person to then drop out, grow his hair long, move to the Castro, live in a shabby camera store, become a street politician, was quite a radical change. And in fact, it was one of the things that inspired us about his life, the potential for one man first to change himself and then to go out and change the world.
Harvey is a story about a man who found his purpose late in life and was really there to help others. He wasn't just there even for gay people in his campaigning. He was a big advocate for senior citizens and for disabled people. Any disenfranchised, powerless groups were people that Harvey wanted to serve. So it's not just about being gay or straight or anything else. It's a story about a person who wanted to make a difference and did.
Harvey Milk, the opera, is about Harvey Milk, the man, but it's also about how Harvey Milk, the man, embodied the trajectory of the gay rights movement. So it's really a history of the gay rights movement as embodied in Harvey Milk.
I don't think it would ever been a school named after him if it wasn't for him, you know. To go to that school is a very safe environment, you know, which I appreciate, and that's what we need, you know, as being gay and being known.
I would say to other young people to be proud of themselves and who they are and being gay and lesbian, and to be careful who they come out to, because the world is scary.
Because I used to think, from my own personal experience, that the world was so understanding and that they would understand everything that I was talking about, everything that I felt. But it's not always like that. But thanks to people like Harvey Milk, the people tend to be more lenient towards homosexuality than they were in the past.
The qualities these students so admire in Harvey Milk are those that have inspired all the veterans we honor tonight. Passion and compassion, courage, conviction, and pride. I'm Katherine Linton. For all of us at In the Life, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
I realized that some people could look at my life and say, oh, it was so sad and he died of AIDS and isn't that tragic? But what I want to come through is that even after all the pain and all the torture and even having AIDS, I can honestly say being gay is the greatest gift I was ever given. I wouldn't change it for the world.
we don't have, what we don't have is time. What we don't have is
In the Life is funded in part by the H. Van Ameringen Foundation. Additional support provided by Michael A. Lepin, Jeffrey B. Soref, Eldon W. Tamblin, the Gay and Lesbian Business and Consumer Expo, and In the Life members nationwide.